Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. News on Channel 2. Thank you for joining us, and we start with our news headlines. Egyptians flock to polling stations nationwide to vote on the constitutional amendments. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi votes in the referendum on the constitutional amendments in Martyr Mustafa Yusri Omara School. And Egyptian expatriates across the world continue to cast their ballots for the second day. And now to the news in full. Amid high turnout, Egyptians flocked to polling stations nationwide to vote on the constitutional amendments in the first day of the three-day referendum. 61 million Egyptians are eligible to vote in 368 polling stations that included nearly 11,000 central stations across the country. The National Election Authority pledged to exert utmost effort to guarantee the transparency of the referendum, which will be held under full judiciary supervision. It added that all the necessary measures were taken to facilitate the voting process on the constitutional amendments for the voters. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi voted on the referendum on the constitutional amendments in Martyr Mustafa Yusri Omara School in Heliopolis, Cairo. Also, Mrs. Intisar Sisi also cast her ballot at the same polling station in the eastern suburb of Heliopolis, Cairo. During the first conference concerning the referendum process, the Deputy President of the National Election Authority, Councillor Mahmoud El-Sharif, asserted that the authority's operation theatre has a continuous connection with the head of the main and sub-polling station. He confirmed on the regularity of the voting process through the first day of the referendum. He added that some polling stations called for support from judges and administrative officials due to the intensive participation of citizens. Parliament Speaker Dr. Ali Abdel Al voted in the referendum on the constitutional amendments at a polling station in Nasr City, Cairo. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli voted on the referendum of the constitutional amendments at the polling station at Al Sheikh Zayed School. Prime Minister Madbouli asserted that voting for the constitutional amendments is a national duty. All Egyptians should be keen to perform it and express their opinion freely in a democratic atmosphere. The Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Sheikh Ahmed Al-Tayyib, voted on the referendum of the constitutional amendments at Martyr Mustafa Yusri Omara polling station in Heliopolis. Pope Tawadros II of Alexandria and Patriarch of St. Mark Cathedral voted in the referendum. Pope Tawadros called upon all Egyptians to participate in the referendum, pointing that the amendments are for the interest of nations' welfare. Pope Tawadros said that the participation in the referendum is a patriotic duty and reflects the positive status of the Egyptian citizens toward the nation. Minister of Interior Muhammad Tawfiq voted in the referendum for the constitutional amendments. Minister Tawfiq asserted that the state's bodies, in coordination with the armed forces, was keen to offer a secure atmosphere for the citizens to practice their right in voting. He added that the ministry had exerted all effort to secure the voting in the referendum. Minister of Endowment Dr. Muhammad Mukhtar Goma said during his voting on the referendum that participating in the referendum is an important step to build our nation and achieve its prosperity. Minister of Trade and Industry Amr Nassar said after casting his ballot that the citizens' participation in the referendum is a national duty that reflects the citizens' keenness to participate in drawing the nation's future to complete the development and construction process. He added that the Constitution amendments is an important step toward the economic reform program and providing suitable job opportunities to youth. Minister of Immigration and Egyptian Expatriates Affairs Nabila Makram voted in the referendum at the British School Committee at Al-Rihab City. She assured that the participation in the referendum is a national duty for every citizen, outlining that all citizens must participate to reflect the civilized stance of Egypt. Meanwhile, she hailed the Egyptian expatriates and the unions abroad that helped to facilitate the voting process. Minister of Investment Sahar Nasr voted in the referendum at Masr al-Jadida School. She hailed the Egyptian people participation in the referendum, pointing that such day reflects the unity of all Egyptians to achieve prosperity for the nation. She added that the Egyptian people always prove that they can carry out achievements that help in the development process. Head of the National Media Authority, Hussein Zain, also cast his ballot at Al-Shuruq Language School in Maadi suburb, Cairo, to vote in the constitutional amendments referendum. Zain said that the high turnout of Egyptians witnessed across Egypt, starting from this morning and also abroad, reflects a true national will to continue the process of reconstruction, development and stability. He added that national media channels are professionally following up democratic scene to convey the positive and distinguished image to the audience. Egyptian expatriates across the world continue to cast their ballots for the second day to vote in the referendum on constitutional amendments. Egyptian embassies and consulates worldwide witnessed a high turnout yesterday, with participants expressing keenness to take part in the voting process. Details in the following report by Abiy Amin.
Egyptians abroad continue voting in the referendum on the constitutional amendments in the Egyptian embassies and consulates for the second consecutive day. A high turnout was witnessed yesterday, the first day of the referendum, across Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Morocco. Egyptians in the United States queued outside the Egyptian embassy in Washington and the consulate in New York, while Egyptians also flocked to the embassy in the Canadian capital, Ottawa. Egyptians in Europe, Asia, and Africa were keen to participate in the referendum. In Russia, the Egyptian embassy in Moscow opened its door this morning to receive Egyptians to vote in the referendum on the constitutional amendments for the second consecutive day. The early hours of this morning witnesses a high turnout amid intensified security measures. Egyptians living in Australia and China also took part with large numbers in the voting process. Spokesman of the National Election Authority, Mahmoud al-Sharif, said that the voting process abroad is running appropriately and no violations were reported. Earlier, head of the National Election Authority, Lashin Ibrahim, said that the Immigration Ministry, Foreign Ministry, and the National Election Authority are in continuous cooperation and coordination to follow up the referendum on constitutional amendments abroad. He added that all facilities are provided to the Egyptians abroad to cast their ballots freely.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held a meeting with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, Presidential Aide for National Projects, and Minister of Petroleum. The meeting focused on the Petroleum Ministry's plan to promote and upgrade the refinery and petrochemical sectors. During the meeting, President al-Sisi gave his directives to the Ministry of Petroleum to improve the petrochemical industries to cope with international markets. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas arrived at Cairo airport in an official visit to hold talks with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The meeting is due to tackle various issues of mutual concern, as well as the situation in the occupied Palestinian territories. The Palestinian ambassador in Cairo and the permanent envoy at the Arab League, Diab Loh, said that Abbas will participate tomorrow at the extraordinary meetings of the Arab League on the ministerial level to discuss Palestinian issue. He added that Abbas will display the latest development in the occupied Palestinian territories. Well, that's all for tonight. Thank you for joining us. From our bulletin director for today, Amal Alewa, editor-in-chief Hiba Khairi, and this is Manal Ibiari. Wish you all the best and a very good night.